Hello everyone and welcome to the Council of Elrond, where we discuss all things Lord of the Rings. I am your host Dave, and with me is the fabulous Johnny.
Hello.
And on today's episode we're going to be discussing the Line of Durin. And during this episode we're going to be discussing the Line of Dave. No, I'm only joking.
See what we did there.
Yeah, exactly. See, we did. We planned that. So, of course, the end of the Rings of Power has finally come, so we're going to have to discuss other things. But don't worry, on this episode, we're going to be touching on one of the main characters that features in the Rings of Power, which is Durin the Fourth. There's also Durin the Third, so we will be touching on those. We'll be touching lots of dwarves. We'll be touching lots of dwarves in this episode. Finally, as well, before we begin this episode, I'd like to say give us a like on YouTube and subscribe to the podcast. Subscribe to us on YouTube, and a special thank you to Jack Knightley as well. And for anyone else that hasn't signed up to us on Patreon, don't forget to do that, because we're doing lots of things on Patreon, including House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon, Jonathan.
House of the Dragon.
And
I heard that. I hear it's really good.
Yeah, it's good. Our review should be going up shortly. Whenever this episode is out, the review will be up.
It'll be out.
But anyways, with no further ado, no, okay. So yeah, let's get cracking into the episode. Let's get into it. So Johnny, I hope you're going to be full of knowledge in this episode.
I doubt it. I'm not feeling very knowledgeable today.
Oh, good. Well, I'm not feeling very knowledgeable either. But
right. Well, hopefully at the end of this episode, one of us will be knowledgeable, and our listeners will be a bit more knowledgeable.
We'll see about that.
Optimistic
Indeed.
Durin didn't tell me you were coming.
Durin didn't know.
Can you at least tell me the Line of Durin, another name for what they would be called?
Oh,
You can think.
The Line of Durin.
The people of Durin.
I'm not sure I understand. Like the Longbeards?
Exactly. So we know, we've talked about it in a previous episode, how there was the 7 dwarven houses, or the 7 dwarven clans that were brought up, and the main one that's featured in The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit as well are the Longbeards. So this is Durin's line, basically, or Durin's folk, as they're sometimes referred to.
Durin's folk, indeed. Yeah.
So, Johnny, in the Rings of Power, we have the father and son, Durin the Third and Prince Durin the Fourth. So, for our listeners, could you basically tell them or discuss what is the main difference between what we know about Durin's in the book and Durin's in this TV show?
Yeah, so I'm sure most people have seen the Rings of Power TV show, and they will have seen in that we had a father and son situation. Durin the Third was the king, and his son, Prince Durin, is Durin the Fourth. And at one point, I can't remember which episode now, but there was one part where they were having a father and son heart to heart, and they were having a little moment. And the king told his son that when the crown gets passed on to the new king, all the previous kings, the knowledge of them flows through them or something like that, and it flows into this new king. Now, I think that's kind of what they were trying to sort of, signal to, which is that in the books, the actual lore is not that, it's not that the Durins are father and son. It's not that there's a King Durin and then he has a son and calls that son Durin. It's that when a king is so similar in likeness and in knowledge and in just maybe appearance, but just basically in all sorts of different ways, when he resembles the Durin of old, the previous Durins, he becomes known as Durin. He gets given the name Durin because people think that he is actually a reincarnation of the original Durin the Deathless, which was Durin the First. So he was the person who established Khazad-dûm, and that's basically it. All of the Durins that followed him were not from the line of Durin as in his son, but they were other kings who basically people thought that they were reincarnations.
Yeah. And you got that right as well, where you talked about not just their ruling style, but their actual physical attributes they believed. Like, it's not, I don't think it's specifically said anywhere in the books that this is what happens. This is the reincarnation.
This is what they believe.
It's what they believed, yeah. And there was a prophecy, and they've just kind of gone along with that. So that prophecy came during Durin the first time.
It's very really difficult to not go and say during instead of during.
Well, I always get mixed up and say the the Jors of Durin. Or no, what do I say? You always call me out on it when I say
Say a lot of dumb shit.
no,
Dave.
no. I said the Doers of Durin.
The Doers of Durin.
The
yeah,
Doers
yeah,
of
you
Durin.
said that quite a lot,
I say that a lot.
Dave gets confused.
I get very confuzzled. But yeah, you mentioned that episode. I think it's episode. It's either episode. Yeah, I'm pretty sure
It was
it's
a
4.
really beautiful, like heart-to-heart moment. I really like again from the show. I definitely think we all had lots of heartfelt moments with Durin at the 4th, especially. But then during the 3rd, he was a fantastic character in the show as well. He really like the King Durin. He just looked like he embodied everything that a dwarf should be. So that was like really, really cool.
He probably embodied all the forebears of the previous Durins as well, which would be accurate. So what he actually says is, our people believe that when a new dwarf is crowned, the voices of all his forebears flow into him, sharing with them their counsel and wisdom, even their mistakes. So yeah, you're right. That's kind of the show's way of touching on this whole idea of other Durins like being reincarnated within. But yeah, the main deviation is the fact that they have 2 Durins in the same show at the same time, which
2 doors of Durin?
two doers of Durin. Yeah, so this is just kind of incorrect, but it's okay. Like I think it's fine because as we're going to hear about what Durin the 3rd was doing and Durin the 4th, both those Durins.
What were they doing?
They need to be around for what this show is going to cover. So we'll get into that.
Okay.
But yeah. So anyways, you've already answered one of my questions, what is another name for Durin the 1st? We're going to touch on all the Durins here, and there's some that have barely any information on it, so don't you worry about it. But yeah, Durin the 1st. Let's start with him. What's another name for him?
Yeah, so I said it already. Durin the Deathless.
Yes.
Was his
And do you know why
maiden
that
name?
was his maiden name? Why was he called Durin the Deathless?
Because he was less of death. He was extremely old. He just he lived for like centuries, like way longer than any normal. Like again, I don't know if they were he was the first dwarf as well. So he was the dwarf that awoke alone, like the creation of Aule, and then he started the. I don't want to explain everything. I'm sure you're.
No. You go ahead. I was going to say, what can you tell me about Durin the 1st?
So he awoke alone under the stars, and he kind of just was wandering around, butt arse naked, and he came upon the Mirror, which is the big lake that also got a mention. That if you've seen the TV series, you'll have seen that they speak about the old mine under the Mirror, which is this big lake, which he came upon, and he looked into the lake and he saw this reflection of the stars above, and it was this beautiful, glorious sight, and it looked like a mirror, I suppose, hence the name. And he decided that this was a sign that he was going to build his kingdom here, and that's where he started. That's where he founded Khazad-dûm. And he lived to be incredibly old, like about 3 times longer than a normal dwarf or something like that. I can't remember how long he lived until, but if a normal dwarf lives till about 250 or so, he probably lived about I don't know, 700. Well, 750 if it was going to be 3 times. But I've no idea how long. I can't remember how long he lived, but very old, long enough for people to be like, "Geez, that lad's never going to die, is he?" And they were called him Durin the Deathless.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But well,
and Finn,
Elfin. He was born before any of the other dwarves, and not just dwarves. He was born before any elves, and even the creation of the sun itself. So we've touched on it in our story. I think in our episode Moria, where we talked about how the dwarves were. Who was it that created the dwarves first?
Yeah, so I mentioned it just there before. I had Aule. Again, if you want to go back to that, Aule, just very quickly, he created the dwarves, the 7 dwarves, the leaders of each family. He just created 7 lads. And then, but he it was like a little side project that he did. He made them in his image, I suppose. And then, but he didn't want to offend anyone else. And then suddenly the main creator, Iluvatar, came over and he was like, "What are you doing? I haven't even created my boys, the elves yet. They're supposed to be
my children.
My children. They're supposed to be the firstborn. That's what they're called. The elves are the firstborn." So he was like, "Aule, you've jumped the gun here. What are you at?" And Aule's like, "Oh, I'm really sorry. Here, I'll just kill all these dwarves.
I'll kill my children."
Yeah, exactly. So there's going to be dwarf genocide. And then Iluvatar stepped in. He was like, "Okay, look, I've got a solution. We'll put them to sleep."
Yeah, because before they were awoken, they were just kind of more like puppets. They weren't really. They didn't have like true life within them because
I think we described them as like NPCs,
like NPCs. They would just be like
non-playable characters.
"Hello
in a
there,
game.
soldier. What would you like to do today?" And that's all they could do. And
So when people weren't interacting with them, they'd kind of
yeah,
they're
just like background characters, and they just fade away. So I think if Aule the Smith wasn't actually controlling them or looking at them, they wouldn't be able to do anything really. So yeah, they're exactly
They're like the
NPCs.
opposite of the toys from Toy Story, who only interact with each other when nobody's around.
Exactly. That's what the dwarves were. So Durin, he was technically created before the elves and before the sun and everything. So he's very, very old, but then he was put to sleep for a long, long time. And then eventually when it was time for Eru to decide on waking up the dwarves, he was the first one to become awake. And he spent a long time wandering around Middle-earth trying to find other families of dwarves. And it was a very lonely time for him. But yeah, you're correct. He founded Khazad-dûm, which is also called... Or what does Khazad-dûm mean? Do you remember?
Khazad-dûm. Ooh, what is Khazad? So it becomes Moria, obviously. And Moria means black pit. Mm-hmm. So Khazad-dûm... Oh, I know the answer. Khazad-dûm means great... No.
Great mistake.
Well,
Khazad. You know what Khazad means?
Would you stop putting me on the spot?
Sorry.
I can't remember. I haven't been doing Kuzdul on my Duolingo now for a little while, so I can't remember.
My Durin lingo.
Feck, I'm not going to get it. What is it?
So Khazad is dwarf. And
Dwarf Mansion.
Yeah, dwarf mansion.
Yeah.
Well done. So, exactly as well. So soon after Durin awoke, all the other dwarves just kind of started waking up as well, and they were drawn to Durin, and he established Khazad-dûm, and this became one of the most fabulous and richest of establishments in all the land. So yeah, Khazad-dûm was the most successful dwarven realm ever, and this was to become the home of all the King Durins. Did I say that right? Yeah, I did. So what else do we know about King Durin the Deathless? I suppose not a lot more. You touched on his age there. He was born in the year of the trees, but it's estimated that he actually lived to about 2,300 years old, which is about 10 times.
Holy moly, yeah.
10 times the lifespan of an average dwarf. But other things we know about him is he's got heirlooms, which included a battle axe and a helm. And those would later be found by Balin and his company when they're going through the mines of Moria, or when they're going through Moria, I should say, or Khazad-dûm, but they eventually get lost again. So I don't think we know where those.
Again, there was a spotting of his axe in the series, in the show, in I think episode 7, the last time we get to see the dwarves.
That wasn't Durin's.
I think that someone said, I think that's Durin's axe.
Durin,
not in the show, but I think I was what?
Durin or Turin?
No, Durin. Not Turin's helm.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that in Numenor. I'm talking about when the Durins were having the chat, when they were
right.
when Elrond basically went and did you not see that?
No.
So in one of the scenes, I think it was when in episode 7, the last time we get to see the dwarves, when the King Durin is given his decision to not help the elves with the whole mithril thing. There's a scene where he tells everyone to get out, and then he says, I'm going to have a conversation with my son now. And in the background, there is an axe hanging on the wall.
Okay.
And it's this cool looking axe. And I think I saw some people speculating online saying, I think that's probably Durin the Deathless's axe.
Oh, cool. Okay, well,
So
if
there you
that's
go.
the case.
Little Easter egg.
I do want to
check it
see. I want to see someone that worked on Rings of Power, or some one of the showrunners actually breaking down and confirming a lot of Easter eggs that we kind of have.
Yeah.
But, anyways, so those were the heirlooms. But he also there's a thing called Durin's Stone, which is basically a monument built overlooking the Mirror, and I believe on that it kind of showcases the events of his life. But excuse me, need to burp. Oh, that was a weird one, wasn't it?
What kind of burp was that?
I burped inside my body.
If Durin heard you burping like that, he'd be ashamed. You're no son of mine.
But we hear about this Durin Stone in I think it's in the appendices in the Return of the King, when Gimli eventually goes back and visits it. And another thing that we read about is the Song of Durin, and this one basically describes all of Durin's life. And I have the song here. It's a little bit long, but
To go where there's a whip.
where there's Durin, there's Durin. So but this is a
Are you
really
going to sing it for us?
well, no, I'm gonna poem it. Is that a word?
You're going to poem it.
I'm gonna poem it. So this is Durin's song or Durin's poem. So in the chapter "A Journey in the Dark," in the Fellowship of the Ring, Gimli sings a song of Durin to the Fellowship whilst traveling through Moria. This song perfectly sums up the life of Durin the Deathless. So I'll give a little rendition of it here.
Go.
Right. The world was young, the mountains green, no stain yet on the moon was seen. No words were laid on stream or stone when Durin woke and walked alone. He named the nameless hills and dells, he drank from yet untasted wells. He stooped and looked in Mirror and saw a crown of stars appear. Sorry, I'm so nervous. As gems upon a silver thread, above the shadow of his head. The world was fair, the mountains tall, in elder days before the fall. Of mighty kings in Nargothrond, and Gondolin, who now beyond. The western sea have passed away, the world was fair in Durin's day. A king he was on carven throne, in many pillared halls of stone, with golden roof and silver floor, and runes of power upon the door. The light of the sun and star and moon, in shining lamps of crystal hewn, undimmed by cloud or shade of night, there shone forever fair and bright. Their hammer on the anvil smote, their chisel clove and graver wrote. Their forge was blade and bound was hilt, the delver mined and mason built. Their beryl, pearl, and opal pale, and metal wrought and fish's mail. Buckler and corslet, axe and sword, and shining spears were laid in hoard. Unwearied then were Durin's folk, beneath the mountains music woke. The harpers harpened and minstrels sang, and at the gates the trumpets rang. The world is grey, the mountains old, the forge's fire is ashen cold. No harp is rung, no hammer falls, the darkness dwells in Durin's halls. The shadow lies upon his tomb, in Moria, in Khazad-dûm. But still the sunken stars appear, in dark and windless Mirror. There lies his crown, in water deep, till Durin wakes again from sleep.
I got a bit lost in the middle there. It sounded a bit like, I don't know, when Eminem was in like singing Rap God, and it was like, I was like, I don't understand those words. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, there was one line that had like pale ale. Oh,
No, there was another one that had something.
Hang on, what was it again?
It's like, bitter.
There was their beryl pearl
There you
and
go.
opal pale.
Their barrel pearl. I was like, hang on a minute now.
I'm beginning to feel like a rap god. So that's pretty much all we know about Durin
nice though.
the First. Yeah, it's cool because that is, I suppose,
And well read, good man.
I don't know, are there many other places where you get to hear about Durin's life, but it's so handy that in the book Gimli just goes, now I'm going to sing a song. And I believe it's when he is reciting the beauty of the Dwaro Dwelf.
Yeah.
And he is just like, now I'm just going to sing about Durin the Deathless. And
Gimli was so excited at that time.
oh, he was, yeah.
The book. He's just so like, oh my god.
Yeah, he's like, oh my god, I know this place.
Yeah.
And I believe he sang the song, and he sang it to the Fellowship, and basically Sam loved the song so much that he wanted to go and learn the song for himself. So that was nice. So anyways, on to
Very good.
Durin the Second. What can you tell me about this lad?
Oh Jesus, no, that's
I know that's pushing it. That's
Durin
pushing
the
it.
Second.
Don't worry. I
Yeah,
can
I
tell
know.
you that you're probably not going to know much more about him because there's not really a lot. He, again, like all the other Durins, he ruled in Khazad-dûm. He was born in the First Age or early Second Age, either late First Age or early Second Age. We don't really know. But the interesting thing about this Durin is he established a connection with the men of the Vales of the Anduin. And he basically established trade between them, so they would offer dwarven made weapons and the men would return with food. And we've talked about it before in other episodes. I think the episode is the episode about why the elves and the dwarves hate each other, but there was a few times where dwarves and elves actually came together and formed an alliance. And we obviously know about the dwarves of Khazad-dûm and Eregion. But this was an earlier example with Durin the Second. So this was obviously late First Age, early Second Age. So it's interesting, but we don't have a lot more information about it. And also the doors of Durin.
The doors?
Did I say the doors?
You did.
The doors of Durin. they talk about a Durin, and it's because of when these doors were built. It's probably Durin the Second that it's referring to. Yeah, so it is funny how you hear Durin's name pop up in so many different places, and you're like, oh yeah, I know that name, but like nearly every single time it's a different Durin. So, anyways, Durin the Third. So we know one of these characters from the Rings of Power. Do you know anything about this character?
Again, when we get into anywhere between like
The first and the last,
the second and like the fifth, it's like Durin the Third. I would have said when you asked me about the second, I was like, I don't really know. But then I was like, oh, the third. I thought he was the guy that was the one who built the doors. I thought that was I'm surprised now that was the second. So what could we know about the third? I think the third is he the one that receives the ring.
Yes.
He gets given the ring. Yeah.
Do you remember what this ring? Like, obviously, it's Durin's ring, but what does it eventually become?
Like the Ring of Thrain.
Close?
Thror.
Yeah. Son of Thrain, son of Thror.
Yeah. So it becomes Thror's ring eventually.
And do you remember as well with this ring that Durin the Third receives? Do you remember who gives it to him?
Who gives Durin the ring?
Or where does he get it?
He gets it. Ooh. Hang on,
there's two answers. That's what I'm saying.
Because there's one thing that like says that Sauron gave them the 7 rings, but then there's another one that says that Sauron gave them 6 rings, and there was one ring that was eventually became Durin's ring, or the ring in Khazad-dûm, and they got that from a different place.
So
I don't know.
There is another canon, I suppose, or I can't remember. I didn't look it up for what it exactly says, but it talks of how Celebrimbor himself delivered this ring to Durin.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah, that's what I was confused about, because I was like, I'm pretty sure I remember there was something with it was that they got that and it wasn't from, and that was the one that was the Khazad-dûm ring, the Durin ring.
Yes, the Durin ring. Yeah.
And in that same canon that says that Celebrimbor gave him the ring, it's like that canon says that Sauron gave the other 6 rings to the other dwarven families. Yeah,
exactly.
So I don't know. I cannot remember. Canon is correct.
I don't know. It's up to whatever people think, but I think this could actually be what the show might do, but they probably won't give it to Durin the Third. I assume if Celebrimbor is going to deliver the ring in the Rings of Power TV show, he'll probably deliver it to Durin the Fourth. But if it's going to be the other way around, if Sauron delivers the rings, then it'll probably be to Durin the Third, I imagine, and then he'll be killed off, possibly by the Balrog. But anyways, Durin the Third, another notable thing that he did was he aided the elves in the war of the elves and Sauron. But again, we're probably not going to see that in the TV show.
Yeah, that'll be a pity. I don't know.
Well, it could be.
Hopefully, we do get to see that war, or that. Like, that'd be class.
Yeah.
To see Sauron, hopefully we'll get to see him as Anatar in Eregion, helping out with Celebrimbor, making the other rings. And then, basically, to give people a long story short, Sauron was known as Anatar, and he's in there in Eregion. He's helping out Celebrimbor. They make the 19 rings. They make, they make 16 rings. They make the 9 that end up going to the men, and they make the 7 that end up going to the dwarves. And then he kind of just bolts it, legs it back to Mordor, and Celebrimbor's left alone, and that's when Celebrimbor makes the 3 elven rings, and Sauron makes the 1 ring. And then after that happens, Sauron eventually comes back to Eregion to try and get his hands on all the rings, all 19, and there's a big war between Sauron and he basically ends up sacking all of Eregion and gets his hands on all the rings except for the elven rings. So
the elven rings were sent away to
and we will say no more in case people don't want to be spoiled for
we've
10
already
years
spoiled.
time in the show, whatever you're going to see, whenever we're going to see the end of it.
So that is Durin Durin the Third. Yeah. So on to Durin the Fourth. So who is this? This is one of the main characters from the TV show.
Well, from the TV show, this is the main lad. This is Owain Arthur.
Owain Arthur.
Owain Arthur, yeah, lovely lad. Great performance in the show. I thought that was class. Do we know much about?
No, we know.
We don't know
We
anything
know
about-
pretty much. I'll say it here for Durin the 4th and Durin the 5th. We know next to nothing about. So that's why I like in the TV show that they can do whatever they want. Like he has this relationship with Elrond, and I think that's really cool. I think that's one of the strongest parts of the TV show. Most people agree that is.
Yeah, I think so.
and
And
yeah.
again, that's what I wanted from the TV show. I wanted to see them fleshing out characters that we know existed, but that we don't have any information about them really, or
Yeah.
we've next to nothing. And that way they could give us more information without, they can't mess up the lore if they can't completely change what your opinion of this character was about if you didn't really have any opinion to start with. So that was something that I wanted to see. I wasn't too concerned about other things that I thought that they might do, but that was one thing I was really hoping for. Now, I didn't expect all the big lore changes that we kind of did get, but we'll save that for another video.
But anyways, another interesting thing to note about Durin the 4th is that he was around during the Second Age, of course, which is in line with the TV show, but he would have been the Durin in charge of Khazad-dûm during the time of the Last Alliance, or the War of the Last Alliance. So we don't know, again, if he actually participated in the war or if he just sent dwarves to fight in his honor.
During the 4th, you're saying?
During the 4th, yeah. So this is cool because by the time the rings are made, Durin the 3rd is around, and by the time, which is season 1 of the Rings of Power, and by the time the Battle of the Last, or the War of the Last Alliance, Durin the 3rd is around. So that's Durin the 3rd.
The end of...
So that's the episode or season 5 probably.
Yeah, you'd imagine that's
I'd imagine
what
so.
happened towards the end.
Yeah, because that's the end of the Second Age. So yeah. So on to Durin the 5th again. Like I already said, I'm not going to bother asking him because there's no information known about this
In
guy
my brain.
in either of the brains. But one thing I suppose we can say about him is he is the last king to live in Khazad-dûm without knowing about the demon beneath them. Ooh, so
A beast beneath the boards.
yeah, that's exactly what I thought about. So there was a beast beneath the boards. So I suppose that brings us on to Durin the 6th. So what can you tell me about this guy? Sorry, but before we go on, how many Durins are there?
8.
What's a very dwarvish number?
No, I was going to say 7, but I thought that would be too obvious.
No, I was just asking.
Oh, there are 7.
Yeah.
All right. I was like, he's going to catch me out here.
Yeah,
now.
we're nearly at the end of the episode
All right,
already.
okay. So yeah, there were 7. Yeah, like there were 7 dwarven families, and there were 7. That's the reason there were 7 rings, because they were given 1 to each family. And then yeah, I was like, there's 7 Durins, but for some reason I was like, maybe there's a sneaky child Durin that just sneaks around in like, because obviously we know of the 3 ages as well, and was like, oh, there were 3 ages. But then when the Lord of the Rings finishes, that starts the 4th age. And I was like, maybe in the 4th age it was another Durin that we don't really know what. But anyway, never mind. I'm wrong. 7 Durins.
7 Durins. So back to, and yeah, in case anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, 7 is a number that just shows up all the time for the dwarves. It just seems to be one of their lucky numbers, I suppose.
Cristiano Ronaldo.
Exactly, yeah. CR7. So Durin the 6th.
Durin the 6th is the lad who wakes the Balrog.
Exactly. And
He was the one who delved too greedily and too deep.
He did. So when Durin the 6th was in power, by the way, I think I mentioned it earlier, but every single one of these Durins at some point in their lives were the king of Khazad-dûm. So during Durin the 6th time in Khazad-dûm, this is probably when Khazad-dûm was, in the height of its glory. It was
heyday.
In its heyday.
Also,
it was a rich kingdom.
Just to go back and to mention the fact that, remember what we said at the beginning, these are not father and son. So from Durin the 4th until Durin the 5th, there could be like 1,000 years.
Yeah, and this is one of the interesting things, I suppose. If you were to look up the line of Durin online, if you were to look it up or see it anywhere on maps or in tapestries or anything, you would just see Durin the Deathless, or Durin the 1st, then Durin the 2nd, Durin the 3rd, and just because there's no information about who his son was, who Durin the 1st son was, and who his son's son was, there's no information there. It's not until we get down to I think it's Durin the Sixth. Yeah, once it gets to Durin the Sixth, you can see his son and his son's son and his son's son, and then eventually we get to the final Durin. So I'll speak about him in a moment. But
What about his sister's son?
yeah, his sister's son. So Durin the Sixth, yeah. So like I said, his time in Khazad-dûm was when they were the richest. This is when Mithril was just going insane, and also you have to remember the Ring of Thror, or I suppose we should still call it Durin's Ring at this moment. That had been passed down through generation to generation, and now it's the King Durin the Sixth ring. And this ring made them greedy and wanted them. In fact, it kind of made them want to not take over Middle Earth, but it just made them kind of
It
want
wasn't like hole up in Khazad-dûm and just keep.
yeah,
keep
no,
digging.
hold up there, but they also kind of seeked
Salt.
power, they sought out power, and yeah, I suppose it just made them really greedy, and maybe they didn't want to dig out the way, they dig down the way.
Dig
so-
up, stupid.
no, dig up, stupid. So like we hear that line in the Lord of the Rings, they delved too greedily and too deep, and they awoke the Balrog of Morgoth. So I suppose you can guess how this Durin died.
You got eaten by a Balrog.
He got
Yum.
eaten. Yeah, it wasn't good for him. I suppose this is probably one of the worst ways to go in Middle Earth.
But it's kind of a cool. Like, I mean,
It is a cool way to go.
I remember him for that.
Yeah. Well, will you?
Probably
Which Durin was it?
not. During the 6th.
Yeah, well done. Okay. So, on to the last Durin. So, do you know anything about this by?
During the 7th,
He has a nickname as well. He has another name. Kind of like Durin the Deathless. This guy has another name.
During the dickhead. He was pure dick. That's
No. But you could almost hazard a guess. Which Durin was he?
The 7th?
Yeah. And was there any more after him?
During the last?
Yeah, that's his name.
Is that his name?
Yeah, Durin the Last. Which is a sad story. Do you know anything about Durin the Last? Tall.
I'm sure I Durin.
Durin member.
What the hell? During the 7th. So the 6th obviously awoke the Balrog, and then that's kind of when they all, that's when Khazad-dûm turned into Moria, the Black Pit, and they all obviously had to get shooed out of there. Not immediately though. They stayed for a little while, and they kind of, well, if I'm not wrong, I'm pretty sure it took them like another, like, I think the Balrog killed Durin and his son, and then maybe the grandson took over, and they kind of held out for a little while, and then eventually they were like, "Nah, we can't be living in here with this housemate. he's a disaster." So they had to leave.
The heating is always turned up to 90. Like.
Energy prices are
Yeah,
through
I
the
know.
roof. I can't remember. You're gonna have to fill me in.
Well, to be honest, I didn't know that if it took them a long time to get shooed out of Moria.
You would imagine like the Balrog comes in, you're like, "Get out here immediately."
Yeah,
I don't think so. I
But
think-
Moria's huge as well.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. I
it's
think
just-
they were like just they camped out in a different part, and they were like, "Okay, you can have the master bedroom.
Yeah.
and we'll take the ensuite."
So yeah, that is possible. But if we look at the Hobbit book, or even the Hobbit movie, well, they don't really say it in the third Hobbit movie, but during the last Hobbit movie is called the Battle of the Five Armies, and it's during the Battle of the Five Armies where Dane Proudfoot, he actually prophesies that there will be another heir that will take over Khazad-dûm. Do I have the exact quote here? He says, no, he doesn't. No, I don't.
That's all, folks. We'll finish the episode up there.
He prophesied the birth, stating that there will be another heir. So this last Durin, he was born in Erebor, and he actually raised an army in the Fourth Age. So this is after all the events of
I
the Lord
knew
of the Rings.
one of them was in the fourth.
Yeah, exactly. So you
I knew it.
kind of feel like all the other
Hobbits.
Durins were during the First and Second Age, and you got at least one in the Third Age during the Sixth. I think he's the only one in the Third Age. Yeah, and but then you kind of forget about the Fourth Age. It seems like a lot happened in the Third Age because there's a couple of thousand years there, at least 3,018 or 3,000
In the Third Age?
Yeah.
Well, it's 3020. It's at least 3020.
Yeah,
3022 maybe.
Right, 3022. So you got a lot of years there without, and a lot of years without a Durin. And yeah, so eventually this guy hails from Erebor, which is the Lonely Mountain. The Lonely Mountain? No, not the Lonely Mountain. Sorry, the other kingdom of dwarves.
That's
It is the Lonely Mountain.
Erebor.
And he basically builds up a big army and goes right towards Khazad-dûm because that is the actual home of the dwarf lords. So he reclaims
the home
it.
of Durin the First. So
And yeah, exactly.
So I had this kind of spiritual symbolism for the dwarves.
Yeah, it was kind of like,
and that was their greatest city. That was
the greatest
New York, basically.
it was the Big Apple.
Yeah.
So they ended up defeating all the orcs in an amazing manner, and he retook the throne room. And happy days, he ruled there for a while, but he didn't end up having any sons, and he grew old, and eventually he died, and therefore the line of Durin ended. So it's kind of sad because he was the one to bring back glory to Khazad-dûm, and I think he got it back to, not maybe it's heyday, but it's heyday. Hey. Yeah, he got it kind of back to where he wanted to.
Is this the 7th?
This is the 7th.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
The 7th.
So the guy that set out from Erebor.
The 7th and the last, yeah, exactly. So
Nice.
yeah, but
know.
that is sad, but that's pretty much all we know about the line of Durin. And again, like as I said, if you were to look up the line of Durin, you would see a tapestry with just Durin the first name and then the first 6 Durins. And then underneath that, you get a proper sprawled out family tree. So something to note within the family tree is that there's many characters from both The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings that are descendants of Durin the Deathless. So I suppose you could probably guess them. Pretty much all the important dwarves from the Third Age. So we have Gimli is a descendant. We have Thrain, obviously then Thorin Oakenshield, Balin, Fili, Kili, Dane, and lots of others like probably Nori, Ori, all those kind of boring ones as well.
All the lads.
All the lads. So yeah, that kind of sums up everything we have on the line of Durin. Do you have any other questions that I won't be able to answer, or even just thoughts that?
No, I'm just I found that interesting about Durin the 7th. I kind of forgot all about him and the fact that I knew Durin the 6th was the one who
awoke the
Balrog, and that caused the fall of Khazad-dûm. And then for some reason, I just sort of thought, oh yeah, and then there was Durin 7th, and then I kind of completely forgot that obviously he came along in the 4th Age.
Yeah,
that's why I was kind of going, oh, and then there was one in the 4th Age, so that's why I thought 8 before. But then, yeah, that makes sense. And I kind of just didn't really think about the fact that he ended up going back and kind of restoring a bit of glory in Khazad-dûm or in Moria. That's kind of cool. Did he change the name back to Khazad-dûm? Did he leave it?
Oh yeah, it was yeah, I think so. Yeah. Did it ever change? Was it just Moria for some people's tongue? I suppose if the dwarves are ever
maybe the dwarves always called it.
They would probably always call it Khazad-dûm, but I'm trying to remember. Does Gimli call it Moria?
He says in the movie anyway.
My cousin Mellon will give us a royal welcome.
He said, "Let us go under it. Let us pass through the mines of Moria."
Yeah. I wonder what he says in the book. Look, like Peter Jackson and Philippa Boyens were quite faithful to the actual script. Well, as faithful as they could be. You're going to look that up there.
It's going to take me a while.
Yeah, no, you look away. But I suppose that is another thing that makes you ponder. You would think that all the Durins have died by the time of the Third Age, or not by the time of the Third Age, but by the time of the Lord of the Rings kicking off. You kind of feel like there's no more Durins left. So it is weird. It's a bit of a spanner in the works to know that there was one final Durin the 7th, Durin the last, who reclaimed Khazad-dûm or reclaimed Moria, and it became a beautiful city again. But it didn't last that long. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is about the Durins. If anyone else has information out there that we might have missed, or any theories about any of the Durins, or if you know who's the coolest, which one lasted the longest. Also, in this TV show, one thing that might worry people is the fact that we did see, now when I'm talking about the Rings of Power, we did see the Balrog being awoken in season 1. Or well, myself and Johnny speculated that maybe he's not awakening, maybe he's just, the leaf came down there and that's just the show showing us that the Balrog exists, and maybe he's just kind of letting out a roar and then he's just going to go straight back to sleep, and then because he is there the whole time throughout all the, like, ever since Morgoth fell, and the Balrogs fled. They fled. When the Balrogs fled, he took up residence in Khazad-dûm, and so he is there the whole time. So that is accurate, but he shouldn't be awake. So hopefully the TV show sends him right back to sleep again. But I think at some point he is going to wake up and wreak havoc in Khazad-dûm, which is a pain because it's supposed to be during the time of Durin the Sixth. But obviously the way the TV show is going, they're changing up the timeline. The War of the Last Alliance is going to come before... it's probably going to come after the battle of the Balrog and the dwarves. So, any luck here with?
I'm reading through different parts here. I'm reading through A Journey in the Dark. They mention it in the chapter The Ring Goes South, where they're on Caradhras and they're basically saying, and Gimli says there that Gimli looked up and shook his head. Caradhras has not forgiven us, he said. He has more snow yet to fling at us. If we go on, the sooner we go back and down, the better. So that's when Gimli's talking about that. So he doesn't really say, let us pass under, let us pass through the mines on Moria. But then later on, in the next chapter, A Journey in the Dark, they're speaking about, and they say the name of Moria is black. And where are we here?
Is that Gimli that says that?
No, that is Gandalf, I believe, that says it. Or, no, sorry, it's Boromir that says that the name of Moria is black. They're speaking about Moria then. And then I think Gimli says that I've lost it now.
But here, I would not lead you into Moria if there were no hope of coming out again.
So I think this is still Boromir. He says, you speak of what you do not know when you liken Moria to the stronghold of... No, sorry, that's answered Gandalf. When you liken Moria to the stronghold of Sauron, answered Gandalf. I alone have ever been in the dungeons of the Dark Lord, blah, 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 blah. And then he says there's even a chance that the dwarves are there. Anyway, I was looking at this part here. I will tread the path with you, Gandalf, said Gimli. I will go and look on the halls of Durin, whatever may await there, if you can find the doors that are shut. So he pipes up and says the halls of Durin. And then there's later mentions down here of both Gandalf and Aragorn, who both refer to it as Moria. And here it says, Gandalf said, and we will come through. In the ruins of the dwarves, a dwarf's head will be less easy to be wilder than elves or men or hobbits, yet it will not be the first time that I have been to Moria. I sought there long for Thrain, son of Thror, after he was lost. So there were a few different times that the company over and back were speaking. Aragorn later says that I do not wish to enter Moria a second time, because Aragorn said that he too once passed the Dimril Gate, and he doesn't want to enter Moria again. So both in that conversation, it's interesting how Gandalf, Aragorn, and Boromir all say Moria, and the only time that Gimli actually mentions it, he says the halls of Durin. So obviously he probably just doesn't want to mention the name of the city with the saying the word Moria.
It's almost derogatory, like Black Pit. Is that Moria? Is that Khuzd-dûl, I wonder?
Which? The word Moria?
Moria, yeah. Or is that Sindarin?
I'd say it's probably Sindarin.
If anyone knows, let us know. Yeah, because just the way it looks like Moria, it seems more Sindarin.
There's no K's or Z's.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I remember when I was watching the films growing up, the only time I ever heard of Khazad-dûm was the Bridge of Khazad-dûm. I always thought Moria was the name of the whole area, and then Khazad-dûm was just like that bridge, that tiny little area within, like, maybe a little suburb inside this ginormous city, and it's like that's the Bridge of Khazad-dûm. And I just always thought that was cool, but I never, because I don't think they ever refer to it in the films as Khazad-dûm. And
I just thought it was the Bridge of Doom, because you'd go to your doom if you're trying to walk across that bridge.
The dwarves do.
Into it, like.
Yeah, I know, it's shocking.
Bit of health and safety there.
But yeah, if anyone knows about like why the heck is it called Moria? Oh, well, we know why it's called Moria, but who coined the name Moria?
And also, who uses it? Like, as in,
It seems like everyone uses it, but do dwarves use it themselves?
Well, yeah, from our little bit of investigation there on the spot.
On the spot, yeah.
I couldn't see Gimli saying it. But
There's probably a whole speech in the next page of Gimli just being like, Moria. Beautiful place, Moria. I absolutely love Moria.
I actually love the ring of the name Moria in my ear. It sounds really nice. Yeah, so I will have to go and check that now off camera. And
off camera.
We'll come back to you next week. Well, we won't. But
no, we won't. But anyways,
let us know in the comments.
Yeah, do reach out and let us know. And if we've missed anything else, don't let us know because we don't want to read those comments. But before we finish on the topic of lines, now this is funny. I didn't tell you we were going to do this. Well, I didn't really tell you we were going to do the Durin episode.
You didn't tell me. Yeah, I just showed up.
So I wanted to share a little conversation with all the listeners that myself and Johnny had this week, and this is concerning Peter Jackson's movie and The King of the Dead. So we both quoted him naturally, obviously. We're always like, quoting things from Lord of the Rings. But we disagreed over whether the quotation is... I thought the quote was...
Oh, you're bringing this back.
Yeah.
Oh,
I thought the quote was, that line was broken. And Johnny thinks it's...
The blade was broken.
Yeah. So when I Googled it, it seems like this is not just me and Johnny thinking about this. Like everyone seems to be very confused with it. Now there's lots of theories, people saying that, like I read somewhere that apparently the theatrical version released one thing. The theatrical version said the blade was broken, and then the extended edition said that line was broken. And we actually know that Peter Jackson was literally editing this movie right up until the end of November, and the movie released like mid-December, or was it late December? I can't remember. Was it around Christmas time, or was it?
Yeah, it was Christmas.
So it was around. So that's very late to be releasing a movie, especially of this magnitude, to be editing the movie before it's released. And so we still don't know, but I've heard.
Well, let's immediately, as soon as we finish this, we're going to just turn on the extended version and watch.
Oh well, no, I have the answer. I was correct.
No, you weren't.
So
I don't believe it until I see it.
So according to official scripts, which I've looked up, the line is, "It cannot be. That line was broken." And Peter Jackson cut out the start that says "It cannot be." So it just says that line was broken. But a lot of people argue, is it the actor that badly delivers the line that blade was broken, or is he badly delivering the line that line was broken? Either way, everyone comes to the agreement that it sounds like he says BLINE, that blind was broken. And it seems like...
I had to watch it because I hear it so clearly.
We're going to play it now for the audience. And,
right.
We're not going to play it live, but, in the editing process.
Okay.
So, click.
No, well, before you hear it, we listened to this the other day, and it was one of those kind of things where... What was that thing that was like a phenomenon the other, like a few years ago? It was the kind of like almost like, the blue and black dress or the whatever.
It's the Bernstein Bears.
The thing that...
It's the Mandela effect. So the Mandela effect, for anyone that doesn't know, it's when... I think it coined its name because people just assumed that Nelson Mandela had died and he was still alive at the time. And everyone was like, no, I remember hearing about Mandela dying. And that was the Mandela effect. And it also came into play when there was this old TV show called The Bernstein Bears. And everyone seemed to remember it being spelt Bernstein, Bernstein. But it's actually Bernstein. And people were blown away. They're like, no, I remember it being EIN, but I think it's because a lot of people's surnames end in Steen, STEIN, rather than STEN.
I'm not really speaking about the memory thing. I'm saying, do you remember a few years ago there was an audio clip that said like Green Eagle and
Green
Eagle, and the other one was like
Brainstorm. It wasn't Green Eagle. It was
something like
Green Diesel. No,
maybe Green Diesel. I don't know, but it was two things that didn't sound anything alike.
Yeah.
And whenever you thought you're going to hear it say brainstorm, you'd click the audio and it would say you'd hear brainstorm. And so maybe it's something like that going on, because the other day we were both listening to this same audio clip. Jeez, we're going on about this for a good while.
I know, but it's interesting. We did.
And both you were like, you see, it said lied. And I was like, I heard blade.
No, but I think, I agreed that at the start you definitely hear a B sound. You wouldn't agree with me that there was an N sound.
I couldn't hear an N in there.
But he definitely doesn't have a D sound, and naturally an N is much softer, or an M or an L or something. So if he goes like that,
my point that nobody pronounces their D's clearly at the end of a word. When you're saying,
I do.
When you're saying like, What? Shush. No, when you hear Lurt saying "find the halflings," he doesn't say "find the halflings."
No, but that's different. If he was saying blade, that's different. There's no N in front of blade. It's not blind. Like it ends in a D.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
But if you say "I made the blade," you say "I made the blade." You'd be like "I made the blade."
yeah, but I'd say I made the blade. I wouldn't say but there's two D's. You can't look. You're wrong.
The difference here is when a word that finishes with a D is the final word of a sentence or is within the sentence.
Yeah. So this is the final word of the
No,
sentence.
it says the blade was broken. That blade was broken.
Oh, that's true.
So the D runs into the W.
But he actually said
for
that
that
line
reason.
was broken.
Ara, would you stop now?
But anyways,
I will concede that it doesn't sound like a normal A, but I think it's just like a Cockney accent again. He's kind of like the blade.
Well, this
That
is
was a bit
why people
Australian.
said that.
Maybe it's
like,
Australian.
Well, people do say that like maybe it was a poorly delivered line, or some people even theorize that the line is that line was broken, but then Peter
Blade
Jackson
is that line was broken.
but then people think that Peter Jackson had that done, but then people complained like
Tried to edit it.
like early audiences were like, that doesn't make sense. That line was broken, but it has been remade.
Exactly.
But like people were like,
argument. You can't.
no, but it does
remake
make
a
sense
line.
to most people. But for like general audiences, when they've just seen a blade literally being broken and then literally being remade, they're like, that makes more sense in the context of the movie.
True, but what I would say about a line, like a noble line of kings or something being broken, you wouldn't say the line has been remade. You would say no, it wasn't broken. Like it. You can't You can't be like, let's go back in time and make one of these kings have a son. That would be
I
remaking
know.
the line.
But like,
That'd be weird.
it was lost in memory and it was lost to everyone else, and it's
Lost
now become
is
a
not
new.
broken.
It was broken to everyone, so it was broken for everyone.
My brain is broken right now.
Anyways, yeah, but this is one thing I just wanted to bring up for everyone because I wanted to hear everyone else's thoughts. I want to know
actually,
what
yeah.
you guys think. Is it blade or is it line? And don't let the true answer negate what you actually feel.
True
because
answer is what I said, the blade.
the true answer is the line. But
What does your heart tell you?
yeah, what does your heart tell you? But like,
You can find any answer on the internet, sure. Never mind that.
It-
Don't look it up online. Don't look up what other people are saying. Just listen to what it actually
and
is.
don't look at the subtitles because the subtitles say line.
Sometimes say blade.
Subtitles say line
In which?
in the movie.
But we're...
Well, I don't know. I didn't watch the movie. I just looked up the episode I looked it up on YouTube with subtitles.
I saw it with blade.
Okay, well there you go. Like there seems to be differences and discrepancies. So again, this is a thing where some people say maybe the theatrical says one, maybe the extended say the other. I don't know. We didn't do our research. But yeah, on that bombshell, let us know what you thought, or let us know what you think about the whole line and blade thing. And anything else on back to Durin? Do you have anything else to talk about Durin or?
No, I think you summed it up all very well there.
Summed it up.
Thank you. I feel like I know more about the Durans now, so that's good. I feel like you've educated me.
You've been educated.
That's good.
You're learning.
I'm slowly. Yeah. As we said, we definitely thought that in the Rings of Power TV show, the two Durins that we got to see were two of possibly our favorite characters. I know that Durin the Third, the King, didn't get enough screen time as I would have wanted. I thought that performance was incredible. I loved everything about him. His look, his voice, his mannerisms, just the way he kind of wobbled as he walked. He looked kind of like he had a bit of a penguin walk on him, which I thought was class. And and again, because we were so invested in Durin the Fourth and Elrond's relationship, whenever Durin the Third basically told him off or kind of, scolded him and told him, no, we're not going to do that. And he's like, but Dad, you're kind of like, you want to kind of side with Prince Durin, but you're kind of just going, Durin the Third, he's class. And he's just like, the elves, they've come, that's the end of the elves. We're not going to help them cheat death.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, but you're like, but come on, like, how can that be your decision?
Was it Harry from Daily Rings of Power that we had on recently where he said something interesting where the people that you kind of don't want to take the sides with, they're the ones that are right. So we have that with Gil-galad and with Durin the Third. They're the ones that are actually kind of speaking sense, but the way the show is being shown, I suppose, it kind of puts you on the side of the opposite character, whether that be Galadriel or Durin the Fourth.
Well, maybe, but as I said, for me in the show, you're kind of you as in, the main character was Durin. Prince Durin was a more main character than his father was.
Yeah.
So you got to know him very well, and you got to kind of really like him, and you wanted him to get what he wanted. You wanted him to be able to mine. But I thought it was really done well that you really understood his father's opinion as well, and you were like, yeah, it's just not safe. I mean, it's just
not.
It's like, I mean, he's going to bring the house down. Can't be doing that.
That's what they should call this whole series of dwarves bringing down the house. Did you ever see that movie?
With like an old kids movie.
Yeah, but it's with Steve Carell and I can't remember who it is, the other one. But anyways, yeah, I think that's all we have to say on the line of Durin or Durin's folk or
The Longbeards.
The Longbeards, exactly. Well done. So yeah, I think we can sum that up. But guys, just want to say as well, with the Rings of Power TV show being over, we're still going to have some episodes that are to do with the Rings of Power. We might summarize what our overall thoughts are on the series, and we're probably going to go into character deep dives as well. Maybe we haven't discussed this, but maybe we might do a character deep dive or two of new characters. I don't know. We'll discuss that later.
Probably not.
He's shaking his head. But yeah, anyways, what I'm trying to say is we're going to be still discussing lots more Rings of Power, but we're also going to be continuing doing these lore episodes too. So stick around if you want to hear Rings of Power and just general Tolkien lore.
It reads, "The doors of Durin, Lord of Moria, speak, friend, and enter."
What do you suppose that means?
Oh, it's quite simple. If you are a friend, you speak the password and the doors will open.
But yeah, that concludes today's episode. So thank you all very much for listening. And please get in touch with us. Let us know, first of all, let us know what you think about the whole that line, that blade was broken. And also if we've missed anything out on the Durins.
Yeah.
And yeah, let us know as well what you're thinking of the Rings of Power TV show. If you've just finished it recently, what are your overall thoughts? What did you like? What did you dislike? And yeah, but don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube. Also, give us a review on one of the Spotify things, or Spotify, any of the podcasts, Apple Podcasts. Yeah, we love reading those, and that really helps out the podcast as well. And don't forget to leave a 5-star review.
Share with your friends.
Tell your friends, yeah, because we want to grow. We want to become one.
Pass the pod. Yeah.
Pass the pod.
We want to keep pushing it out there.
Yeah, and just to remind everyone as well that we do have a Patreon. That is the best way to show us some support. So please head on over there. All of our links are in the description below. And like we said, we're currently reviewing The House of the Dragon, which is almost coming to a close this week.
Exciting.
I believe. Yeah, very exciting. So final shout out to Jack Knightley. Thank you very much. And with that, I suppose we will end our episode. So thank you very much, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.